Episode 4 of Zero Day begins with a large bank called American Homestead facing a cyber attack. The government freezes all financial activity to stop further attacks. But unfortunately, this doesn't go well as the locals have no money and begin rioting. Drea tries to take control of the bank case, but Mitchell refuses. Meanwhile, George is busy questioning Evan Green after more evidence has popped up of the influencer colluding with the Reapers. But Green is his usual cocky and evasive self. His lawyer, Bob, tries to make him understand the severity of the situation and how he won't get any of his human rights due to the commission arrest. He needs to talk even if he simply invited the Reapers as guests on his show. It's also pretty suspicious why he's erased his hard drive before his arrest. The commission is a PR nightmare though, as negative rumours start swirling, encouraged by CEO Monica Kidder. Even the news channels that back George are calling him ineffective. Melissa wants to try and change the narrative and show that George is open and transparent by testifying, but he refuses until they have an answer. The next strategy is to invite Kidder, who just wants a seat at the table. A desperate Valerie visits Mr. McKenna about Proteus, as he is the original scientist. Everyone else is dead and someone has revived it. It turns out this is actually a neurological weapon that violates the Geneva Accords. It can cause brain trauma from a distance, and the origin can never be traced as it uses radio waves. We then jump to day 20 and Green finally talks to Carl. He insists he knows nothing and just has the emails of the Reapers. Valerie has the results of the burnt Idaho server farm though, which has a couple of code names. Roger is surprised though, as he's heard of them when he was brought to Lyndon's yacht. Meanwhile, Valerie tells George about Proteus. What's surprising is that he should have known what kind of weapon it was since his office shut it down. She shows him his symptoms: dementia, psychosis, sleep deprivation, stress, mood swings, impulsivity, hallucinations and memory gaps. He confesses to actually having these symptoms and they realise he has been targeted. Roger unknowingly starts looking into it as he checks the radio equipment found at the Idaho farm. He buys a new radio and tunes into the same channel as it was last on. Elsewhere, Drea convinces Mitchell that George needs to quit to protect her from any blowback. He quit the re-election because of his son's death, and Drea hints that if something similar happens, George will quit again. Is Drea going to kill Alex? Speaking of which, Alex tells Sheila she is worried about George. Green and Kidder's followers protest outside George's house, and Sheila decides to take matters into her own hands. Through all of this, George finally meets with Kidder, and it's clear her ego has been hurt as he refused to help her initially. He gets straight to the point as he points out the damage she is doing to the country and how she's benefiting from it. She can either help them by calming the public or just up and leave. Mitchell tells George he has 24 hours to find a link between the bank attack and Zero Day. After that, she will unfreeze the financial infrastructure, much to his chagrin. She's confident they're not connected as Drea has proof of a similar bank attack last spring. George is frustrated with Drea for hiding such information, and he also believes that the Zero Day malware is also in their financial servers, but Mitchell doesn't agree. Roger then overhears a man on the radio sharing some coded message which he notes down. He calls Alex and wishes they could run away before visiting a bar. Lyndon's man shows up and tells him to get George to step down. He can do it by bringing evidence that George is not of sound mind, but if he doesn't comply, they will tell Alex all of Roger's dirty secrets. Sheila shows up at HQ and learns of Proteus. She wants George to step down, but he insists that he's fine. She doesn't believe him and wants him to take a psych evaluation just to be on the safe side. While this is happening, Roger goes through George's journal, which proves he is unstable. He then heads to Alex and gets drunk. He reminisces about their time together and how much he loves her. She was the one who actually got George to hire him in the first place, and he's the one who hacked her phone to publicly expose her ex because he wanted to get her back. She's shocked as he leaves. At home, Lyndon's man shows up and Roger refuses to be their pawn. It's the wrong move though, as several thugs barge in. They drug him and drown him in the bathtub. George's psych evaluation though comes back perfect except for one question. When asked if there is ever any music playing, he pretends that there isn't, and while it isn't, he continues to hear Who Killed Bambi, but this time he is aware that it is a Proteus symptom. The rest of the evaluation results prove that George is of sound mind, and there are only certain moments when Proteus takes over. Sheila is upset because this means all of George's missteps have been his own, and he hasn't been manipulated into these actions. George is beyond caring as he has wasted enough time on this. To speed things up, he has Carl torture Green. Unfortunately, it seems that Green doesn't know anything, but George refuses to stop the torture. Roger. In fact, Green had simply erased his hard drives as he has been money laundering. The next morning, Mitchell gets a tip that a bank attack is by the same guys who attacked last spring, and they are called Sinecure. Alex is shocked by Roger's death while George gets PTSD. His son died of an overdose while Who Killed Bambi had been playing on his radio. At present, George notices that Roger's bathroom is similarly scrambled with drugs. Turns out, Lyndon's men have framed the murder as a drug overdose. At the end of episode 4, George looks lost in thought. He looks at his journal, which looks like the ravings of a lunatic. Annoyed, he hides it in his drawer. The second half of this Netflix show picks up the action as we race forward towards a conclusion. There's a lot happening here and some new mysteries, as well as the Proteus attack, Lyndon's connection to it and the bank attack all make up a good chunk of the screen time. While it does get a little cumbersome to keep up with these storylines, the psychological aspect is still quite engaging. Viewers are bound to stay hooked though, as George fights an invisible neurological weapon which has everyone doubting his capabilities. With every misstep, there's an interesting psychological undertone here as you start to wonder whether this is Proteus, the attackers trying to paint George in a negative light, or just him making mistakes due to the overwhelming pressure. Poor Roger finally gets his redemption arc too, but at the expense of his life. But if George is as paranoid as he looks, he will very likely realise that Roger has been murdered, and it looks like Lyndon has a much larger role to play than the rich opportunist, but I guess we'll have to wait and find out how this one plays out. Thanks for watching, and do let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Smash a like or subscribe to the channel, your support is very much appreciated. I'm Greg Wheeler, and from all of us over here at The Review Geek, we'll see you on the next video.